Hello everyone, my name is Chris and today we will be ranking every Game of the Year winner since 2014. To make it perfectly clear, we are discussing the show hosted by Jeff Keighley simply due to its popularity. If you need a reminder, here is a list of all the titles we will be discussing today in order of release. We have 2014's winner, Dragon Age Inquisition, followed by The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Overwatch, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, God of War, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, The Last of Us Part 2, It Takes Two, Elden Ring, and the latest winner, Baldur's Gate 3. And that's it. Make sure to leave your ranking in the comments down below, and if you do, we will likely include your comment in the next video. Okay, let's kick things off with the game that started it all. The first winner of the Game Awards. Number 10, Dragon Age Inquisition. I didn't really like this game all that much personally. The combat style really isn't my thing, but I thought the rest was fine. It really didn't face great competition either. 2014 really wasn't a great year for gaming looking back, although there were a few hidden gems in there like Alien Isolation, Wolfenstein, South Park The Stick of Truth, and of course we had the first Destiny which had its fans. In terms of who I think should have won from the nominees, I'd give it to Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor personally, however my overall favorite game that year is definitely Wolfenstein, which I actually played earlier this year. Still love it. Moving on to number 9 we have It Takes Two. I love this game. I played through it twice, and it really did feel special and unique both times. The characters themselves, while initially rather dislikable, did grow on me. But more than anything really, it was the fact that we got to play this with a friend or a loved one. Or a friend you love, I won't judge. When it comes to the other games released that year, much like 2014, I really didn't enjoy that many of them. In fact, I think my favorite release of the year was probably the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, as I finally got to play Mass Effect 1. Yeah, I know. Other than Mass Effect, I thought most of the other titles released in 2021 really aren't all that great. I don't get the love for Deathloop, Resident Evil Village was fine, and that really leaves us with only one firm competitor, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Which is a lot of fun and it really showcased the power of the PlayStation 5, but overall, I actually agree that It Takes Two should be the winner. Yes, it was no masterpiece by any means like some of these other titles, but you can clearly see that this was a game made by people passionate about the art form. Taking the number 8 spot we have Overwatch. I'm gonna say it straight up, I don't agree with this award winner. 2016 was actually a really good year for games. We had the Doom reboot, Uncharted 4, Dark Souls 3, Battlefield 1, which is actually the last Battlefield I'd consider a good game, XCOM 2, Dishonored, the first Hitman, so many really good titles, and yet somehow Overwatch came on top, despite it being a multiplayer game only. Okay, with this little rant out of the way, it's not a bad game by any means, hence why I give it the number 7 spot. It was the talk of the town back in the day, and it felt like everyone and their grandmother was playing it. But it didn't hook me personally, and looking back, it really didn't push the industry forward. In fact, the game steadily declined over time, and you can't even play it these days. Whereas Doom did feel like a push in the right direction. The game is easily in my top 3 shooters of all time, while others would actually argue it's the best. Although I personally think its sequel did an overall better job in terms of mechanics and flow of combat. So yeah, let's move on to number 7. Sekiro. I will admit this straight away. I am very not good at this game, and despite that, I can say it's a masterpiece. When it got nominated, I was really happy to see it in the list in the first place, but it winning really surprised me. I was happy to see that a game that isn't designed for mainstream audiences can actually win. Game developers and publishers should learn that it's okay to make a game that demands your audience's attention and active involvement, learning mechanics, improving your timing, etc. Not everything needs to be oversimplified, stripped to the bone and painted over with fancy graphics, which is what Bethesda Game Studios recently did with Starfield, minus the fancy graphics. Sekiro is an amazing game with awesome boss fights, cool story and really thought out mechanics. It is definitely not for everyone, but that's okay. Other games I think are worth mentioning that year include Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, the Resident Evil 2 remake, Plague Tale Innocence, Control, and Metro Exodus, which has a special place in my heart due to my obsession with the post-apocalyptic genre. All great games, worthy of recognition. Ultimately though, I agree with Sekiro taking the prize. Okay, here I might get a bit controversial. Number 6. The Last of Us Part 2. Man, 2022 was quite the year. Pushing aside all the shenanigans that went on in the real world, in gaming we had the catastrophic release of Cyberpunk, which, had it released in the state it is now, could have actually won the prize, Doom Eternal, which I thought was a great sequel to Doom 2016, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which sucks. And Ghost of Tsushima, which is my personal favorite of the year. I remember hating the fact that The Last of Us 2 won over Ghost of Tsushima, not because of the controversy surrounding The Last of Us, but because Ghost actually pushed Sony exclusives forward. I think this might be Sony's best exclusive since the original Last of Us. The open world was fun to explore with minimal HUD involved, the art style was amazing, it had really fun combat with some added depth coming from the force stances, bow action, kunai, smoke bombs, etc. All on top of an actually good story. The Last of Us Part 2, despite all controversies, is also a good video game in my eyes. The graphics and atmosphere alone are mind-boggling, and the overall gameplay is superb. When it comes to the writing, however, it is a mixed bag. Now I won't discuss the story, however I will say this. For a game whose main focus is the story, it could have been a lot better. Number 5. God of War. I have mixed feelings on this game. It is a great video game, but winning over Red Dead Redemption 2, I don't know. No disrespect to Santa Monica Studio here. They made a really good game with memorable characters and a great story, and I'd say they'd be the clear winner almost any other year. But Red Dead Redemption 2 Arthur Dutch the gang, the slow burn that story was, watching how this family of outlaws falls apart, the emotion it made me feel as it went on, it's a masterpiece, and I don't really use that word lightly. Arthur is probably my most favorite game protagonist of all time. I really think they should have won the big prize, but I guess them winning in 4 other categories works as well. Other games worth mentioning that year are Spider-Man, which I think remains the best Marvel superhero game, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which I think is the last decent Assassin's Creed game, even though it doesn't feel like Assassin's Creed at all, but yeah. And of course, who can forget Fallout 76.
Right? Wrong.
Okay, moving on to the top 4. I feel like you could really arrange these in any given order, to be honest. All of them are amazing games, but as I mentioned before, there is one I actually haven't played. Number 4. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. While I didn't get to experience it personally, I did get to observe the overall impact it had on gamers. Some claim it to be a masterpiece, others say it's overhyped. From my point of view, after having watched a few of those long video essays about the game, I can see that it definitely left a mark, and it without a doubt deserved to win that year. As for the other nominees, they include PUBG, which is a really dumb choice, Persona 5, Super Mario Odyssey, and Horizon Zero Dawn. Horizon being my least favorite Sony exclusive, I don't hate it, I just really couldn't get into it, at all. My personal favorite game that year, however, is Wolfenstein 2, although Cuphead, Nier Automata, South Park and Prey are also worth mentioning here as well. These are all great games that I love, but I acknowledge that they are nowhere near as impactful as Zelda. Taking the third spot we have the latest winner of the Game Awards, Baldur's Gate 3. Truly, this is a game that should be celebrated in the gaming community, and I say that as someone who isn't the biggest fan of these types of RPGs. Larian Studios put a lot of other developers and publishers to shame, once again proving that a game doesn't need to be oversimplified in order to be successful. I think this is an important moment for the industry going forward. Can you imagine a world in which a dumbed down RPG like Starfield gets nominated and wins over this? Ugh. As for the other nominees this year, I'd say this is an overall good year for gaming. My personal favorites are probably Alan Wake 2 and the Dead Space remake, although we can mention quite a few others here as well, like the Resident Evil 4 remake, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Armored Core 6, Spider-Man 2, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, etc, etc. I sure hope 2024 is just as good as this. And now we're down to the final 2, Elden Ring and The Witcher 3. Both amazing games in their own right, and on my top 5 games list ever, next to Red Dead Redemption 2, Fallout New Vegas and Mass Effect 2. Picking one over the other here is hard. It comes down to what you value more in games, the gameplay or the story and characters. I value both greatly, but ultimately, on a personal level I have made storytelling a big part of my life, as I'm a film editor by trade. So the number 2 spot goes to Elden Ring. I was extremely happy when it won last year. Much like It Takes Two, I basically played through the whole game with a friend and I loved every moment of it. Yes, even those moments in which I was crying from frustration after the repeated beatdown from bosses I received. That game proved that the open world formula we've been experiencing in countless other titles can be improved. Elden Ring's refusal to hold your hand every waking moment is what made it so special. It really brought back the meaning to the term sense of exploration. I haven't had this much fun exploring since games like Fallout 3, New Vegas and Skyrim, and what made it even better is that I got to experience all of this with a friend. Even though the summoning system is a bit annoying, still, I never felt more motivated to pick up flowers in any other video game, so yeah. And this leaves us with number 1, The Witcher 3. which might be a very generic choice, but even so, there is a reason for this. I actually got to play The Witcher 3 12 months after its release. At first the hype surrounding the game pushed me away from it, which is ironic given that I played and voted for Fallout 4 at the time. Which isn't a bad video game, it's just nowhere near as good as The Witcher 3. Sure, the game isn't as great of an RPG like Baldur's Gate 3, but it makes up for it with its amazing world building, story, writing, decent combat and one of the best protagonists in gaming. CDPR really raised the bar for open world action RPGs with this game. Even now, over 8 years later, no other game in the genre comes close. But yeah. What about you? How would you rank these titles? And do you have a favorite game you think should have won any given year? Let me know in the comments down below. Until next time, have a nice day!